Episode 20, 15th of June 1982, 9:45 a.m. The British Army is the ultimate procedural organisation, especially in times of war. Although the families of those involved in the fighting would be aware from every broadcast that their husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, boyfriends were now fully engaged in war, they also knew that the army, after its years of experience in Northern Ireland, was never drawn on the subject of casualties until every possibility of doubt was eliminated. In the British Army, next of kin should only learn of a death through official channels. With a few notable exceptions, the media cooperate in this respect. The army adheres to another strict procedure. Bad news should never be broken to next of kin in the middle of the night. And so on the morning of 15th of June, almost 24 hours after their son had been charging across the light snow-covered slopes of Sapper Hill towards the Argentine defences, with a bayonet attached to the end of his rifle, Ethel and Harry sat in the living room with Bobby standing behind them, facing a very official-looking Scots Guards officer who was accompanied by two chaplains. The elder of the two chaplains spoke first, the other comforting Ethel as his colleague broke the news. As soon as they had approached the front door, Hetty had run screaming up the stairs to her room. Gary had once told her all about the formal procedures that happened in wartime. From this, Hetty knew that if two padres came to your door, it meant there had been a death. If it was one, it meant an injury. Ethel had barely moved from her seat for 2 days. Harry had paced the floor between the radio in the kitchen and the television in the living room. And Bobby had tried to take his mind off everything by making tea and answering the countless telephone calls inquiring if there had been any news. The officer had some official business first. He handed over a collection of letters written by Gary in the last month. Procedural mix-ups had prevented them from getting through to their intended recipients. The army was officially sorry for any distress that this had caused. Ethel was in complete shock, and although she heard it, she took in nothing of the official story relayed by the officer. He told the following expansive account. On the morning of 13th of June, Gary's battalion was moved by helicopter from their position at Bluff Cove to an assembly area near Goat Ridge, west of Mount Tumbledown. The British plan called for a diversionary attack south of Mount Tumbledown by a small number of Scots Guards, assisted by the 4 light tanks of the Blues and Royals, while the main attack came as a 3-phase silent advance from the west of Mount Tumbledown. In the first phase, G Company would take the western end of the mountain. In the second phase, left flank would pass through the area taken by G Company to capture the centre of the summit. And in the third phase, right flank, of which Gary was a part, would pass through left flank to secure the eastern end of Tumbledown. A daytime assault was initially planned, but was postponed at the British battalion commander's request. In a meeting with his company commanders, the consensus was that the long uphill assault across the harsh ground of Tumbledown in daylight would be suicidal. At the time of the battle, N Company held Mount Tumbledown. Mount William was just south of Tumbledown, and the Marine Battalion's O Company was on its lower slopes. B Company 6th Regiment was in reserve behind N Company. M Company occupied Sapper Hill. The Argentine defenders held firm under the British softening up bombardment, which began at 7:30 p.m. local time. At 8:30 p.m. on the 13th of June, the diversionary attack began. The 2nd Battalion Scots Guards Reconnaissance Platoon, commanded by Major Richard Bethel and supported by 4 light tanks of the Blues and Royals, attacked the Argentine Marine Company, entrenched on the lower slopes of Mount William. On Mount William's southern slopes, one of the tanks was taken out of action by a booby trap. The initial advance was unopposed, but a heavy firefight broke out when British troops made contact with Argentine defences. The Argentines opened fire, killing 2 British soldiers and wounding 4. After 2 hours of hard fighting, the British troops had secured the position. Fearing a counter-attack, the British platoon withdrew into an undetected minefield and were forced to abandon their dead. 2 men were wounded covering the withdrawal, and 4 more were wounded by mines. The explosions prompted the Argentine troops on Mount William to open fire on the minefield and the likely withdrawal route of anyone attacking the Mount William. The barrage lasted for 40 minutes, and more British casualties would have been suffered if the mortar bombs had not landed on soft peat, which absorbed most of the blasts. The fighting was hard going for left flank. The Argentinians had dug in well with machine guns and snipers. At 2:30 AM, however, a second British assault overwhelmed the Argentine defences. British troops swarmed the mountaintop and drove the Argentinians out, at times fighting with fixed bayonets. By 6 AM, left flank's attack had clearly stalled and had cost the British company 7 men killed and 18 wounded. On the eastern half of the mountain, the platoon of Argentine conscripts was still holding out, so Colonel Scott ordered the right flank to push on clear the final positions. Major Simon Price sent 2nd and 3rd platoons forward, preceded by a barrage of 60mm rockets to clear the forward RI6 platoon. Major Price placed 1st platoon high up on the rocks to provide fire support for the assault troops. Lieutenant Robert Lawrence led Gary's 3rd platoon around to the right of the Argentinian platoon, hoping to take the Argentinians by surprise. They were detected, however, and the British were briefly pinned down by gunfire before a bayonet charge overwhelmed the Argentine defenders. Advancing out the central region of Tumbledown Mountain, the British again came under heavy fire from the Argentinians, but by advancing in pairs under covering fire, the British succeeded in clearing those RI6 company platoons as well, gaining firm control of the mountain's eastern side. Right flank had achieved this at the cost of 5 wounded, including Lieutenant Lawrence. The Argentine sniper with an FAL rifle had helped cover the Argentine retreat, firing shots at a scout helicopter evacuating wounded off Tumbledown and injuring 2 guardsmen before the Scots guards killed them in a hail of gunfire. Gary had been confirmed as one of the guardsmen who had killed the sniper. Shortly after this, there was some final shelling from the Argentine encampment. This had disorientated and scattered 3rd platoon, and although his remaining comrades hadn't witnessed their deaths or been able to recover their bodies in the aftermath, Gary and one other private, Benny Lewis, was now officially missing, presumed dead. Just before Ethel collapsed, the officer informed him that Gary had been recommended for the Distinguished Conduct Medal.